to talk about a topic. Now, these are those videos that will never go viral. They will never get watched a lot because of the kind of topic. People want quick fixes. But today I want us to talk about identity. And identity is a very powerful concept if you master it. And identity generally determines what you do and eventually what you have. So have you ever asked yourself, have you ever noticed how two people with the same opportunity always end up with completely different result? The difference is not what they have, but it is in who they are. In short, their identity. A quick example. Do you know that it's a question or something just to linger on? Do you know that when, or have you ever heard that when a millionaire loses everything, after he can quickly rebuild himself up because their identity, the identity of that person is already a wealth creator. Now, so will today I'll show you why identity is the foundation of life, for business, for faith, and how you can strengthen your identity. Now, let's go to the foundation, the biblical foundation of identity. In Genesis 1:27-28, God created man in his image. He blessed them and gave them the identity before giving them any responsibility. And for example, when Adam didn't need to prove himself before having dominion. Why? Because he was already given the identity, because he already identified himself as someone who has got an image of God. So he was a, a God's image bearer. So the key point is this, that God will always establish identity before the function. He will always give the identity before he gives the function. And this applies in different fields, areas of our life. Whenever you want to do something, you first of all always need to have the identity that will enable you do that particular thing. You are trying to, not trying, I don't like using the word trying. You want to start a business. So you need first to identify yourself as that business owner before that business succeeds. You want to save money, you first have to become the person who saves money before you actually save money. You want to increase your salary by doing extra businesses or and having an extra side hustle. You first have to start by becoming. And anytime you sort the becoming part first, then all those other things, the doing and the having, will always sort themselves out, will always sort themselves out. Now, another thing that I want us to talk about is that identity shapes action. And I've talked about this framework many times. The B do have framework. In Proverbs 23:7, the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. And a very good life example that is practical, and you always hear it out. A smoker who is trying to quit says, I'm trying to stop smoking, versus another one who says, no, I'm not a smoker. When you have a cigarette, who are you likely to give? The one who says that I'm not a smoker, or the one who says that I'm trying not to smoke? So the second person is speaking from identity, not struggle. And so is the one who is not likely to smoke. Now, identity always drives consistency. If you believe that you are disciplined, then you will act differently as someone who is disciplined than trying to say, I'm lazy but trying. So identity will always drive consistency in everything that you do. Now, what are the dangers of losing identity? Lost identity. And in the Bible, the biblical perspective, the Israelites in the wilderness. Now, you see, God had already called them his people. God had already shown them who they were according to in his face, but they still saw themselves as grasshoppers. Numbers 13:33. Their self-identity was limited, actually limited their destiny. They allowed the environment to dictate the kind of identity that they had. That's actually, they saw themselves as grasshoppers. They couldn't have imagined or thought of about any animal but grasshoppers. Now, a practical life example: a student who labels themselves as just being average, or a student who labels themselves as I'm average or I can't do more, will constantly stop working or will always stop trying harder even when they're very capable, because of the identity that they have labeled themselves with. So the key point here is, anytime the enemy or anytime someone wants to confuse you or to distract you from your goals, they will always mess up with your identity. They will control your identity, and the moment someone controls your identity, they basically controls the kind of person that you are. Now, reclaiming and building your strong identity. What should you do to reclaim or build your identity? And we go back to the Bible again. The very first step is always know who you are in God. You are a chosen generation and a royal priesthood. First Peter 2:9. And constantly, that is one. So know who you are. You embody the image of God. You embody uh, the power and the image of God. Then speak it daily. Affirm your identity and don't just describe it in words. Say words like, I am I'm someone who does something, or I'm someone who already has something. Not I'm someone who is not trying to do something. Then surround yourself, change your environment, surround yourself with people who help you shape your identity. And then the last step is act as if. Act as if means that live today as the person that you want to be tomorrow. If yes, I think it's self-explanatory. Sorry. So these are the few practical life examples. If you want if you want to be wealthy, don't just learn skills. Don't just learn skills that will enable you to be wealthy. That's a very good step, first step, but don't just learn them, but first become a steward. Someone who is disciplined, someone who is patient, someone who is generous with the wealth that you are aspiring to have. If if you want to be a great parent, a great guardian, then you have to be very intentional. You have to be present. You have to be loving now, not the day when you get children or not the day when you become. If you want to be a leader, a good example, you start serving and influencing people in the situation that you are in now. So leadership is actually an identity thing. It's not a position thing. So your your identity determines your destiny. Before you can do or have anything lasting, before you can have any lasting impression in life, lasting impact in life, you must know who you are. And that's basically your identity. And you align it with what God says you are. Everything else will automatically flows. The doing will flow and the having will flow. So that is essentially a summary of the bid to have framework. But the core thing, the core the core pipeline in the whole thing is that uh, anytime you sort out identity, when identity is sorted out, then each and everything in whatever you want to do in life will be sorted out. So that is it about identity. And as I said, these are not those videos that people will keep watching over and over again because of the how it is. So if you find it helpful, share with a friend who and it might just impact someone positively. So have a good one.